There's some statement here that I'm going to read to you, inshallah, from our mashayikh, Shaykh Muhammad bin Umar bin Salim Bazmul, hafidhahullah ta'ala, from the ulama of our times, from those mashayikh, lives in Mecca, from those recommended by the likes of Shaykh Rabi', Shaykh Ubaid, and many of the other scholars. He's a teacher in his own right, an ustad in Ummul Qura, and he has a PhD from the same university, hafidhahullah ta'ala. He has a book, Ar-Rad ala Kutub Mashbuha, a refutation upon those books that are spurious or doubtful. Those spurious books, a refutation upon the spurious books. And in essence, this book is a refutation of Abu Muhammad al-Maqdisi, this takfiri individual, this Khariji, who has declared the kingdom of Saudi Arabia to be a kingdom of kufr and shirk, and declared that the rulers are kuffar and so on. But at the beginning of this book, in essence, he brings some qawaid and some usul that I think every single Salafi needs to know, and principles with regard to the issue of refutation and rebuttal of Ahlul Bid'ah. And he mentions that some of the people that they claim that these rudud, that these refutations that are being written, that they are a cause of fitna and tafarruq between the students and the youth. That this is the cause, that this, as a result of the refutations, that the students and the youth and the Muslims at large, that they begin to divide and split amongst each other. So the Shaykh, his point here in this first couple of pages, and I'll just take the meat of that which he says and those quotes that are going to be easy to bring out in the short period of time that we have. He mentions, Shaykh Muhammad Bazmul, he mentions that actually it is silence in the face of deviation and misguidance that is the cause of fitna in reality, that cause immense corruption between the Muslims. So it is not permissible. He mentions it is not permissible to remain silent regarding misguidance when the misguidance appears. And it is this silence in the face of bid'ah, in the face of those people who deviate from the kitab and the sunnah, it is this silence. And this silence becomes nothing except like grey ashes that cover the glowing embers underneath, silencing them, but the fire still burns secretly underneath the ashes. Just like when you light a fire, and then over a period of time, the grey ashes, they cover the glowing embers underneath. So sometimes a person may be deceived into thinking that the fire has been extinguished, but underneath, the fire is still glowing, the embers are still glowing red. So refuting these people is a protection of the religion itself and from the obligations of the religion. Just as Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, that he stated, the purification of the path of Allah, the purification of the path of Allah and His religion and His minhaj and His sharia, and to protect it from the errors of those people and their enmity upon that, is an obligation of kifaya. It is fard kifaya, by the consensus of the Muslims, that a group of the Muslims are obligated to refute and to rebut and to oppose the mukhalafat, to oppose these oppositions to the kitab and the sunnah. By obligations, a group of the ummah must rebut them and must refute them, to repel the harm. And he mentions, and if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had not raised those individuals, meaning the ulama, to repel the harm of these people, then the deen itself, the religion itself, would have been corrupted. Indeed, its corruption, meaning the deen by misguidance, is greater than the corruption that comes about by the conquering of the enemy, by warfare of its army. And that is because when the enemy, the non-Muslim, conquers the Muslim lands, then they cannot corrupt the hearts of the Muslims. By conquering the Muslim lands, they will kill, and they will plunder, and they will take the wealth from the Muslim lands. But the hearts of the Muslims themselves will remain upon the deen of Allah. They will not give up their religion just because a Christian has come to overtake them, or a Jew has come to overtake them, or the Hindus, they fight them, or the people of idolatry, they invade the lands of the Muslims. They may take the wealth of that land, they take the property of that land, they may pillage and they may plunder, but they will not, that in and of itself will not be a cause of the Muslims to leave their religion. Their hearts will remain sound upon the deen of Allah. That they may give up their houses and their land, but they will not give up their hearts to the deen of the Christians and the Jews. So therefore he mentions, and that is because when they conquer, they cannot corrupt the hearts, and that which the hearts contain of the religion of Islam, except over a period of time, meaning generation after generation after generation, it is possible for a Muslim eventually to be worn away, so much so that he loses the aspects of his religion. But as for these deviants, these people who come in the garbs of Islam, then they corrupt the religion, or they corrupt the hearts right from the beginning and right from the outset. Because when the Muslim comes with his deviation and his misguidance, then as soon as he starts speaking, because he's a Muslim, you'll find that the generality of the Muslims, or the average and the general folk of the Muslims, that their hearts immediately begin to respond, especially if their hearts are not strengthened by the deen of Allah and strengthened by istiqamah and the sunnah. So no doubt, my brothers and sisters, with regard to that statement of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, it becomes an obligation. But then there appears a group amongst those who ascribe themselves to Islam, that their argument is, allow them to carry on. And Shaykh al-Islam has already refuted that, because if they were allowed to carry on, then the religion and that which we perceive to be the religion of Islam itself seems to be something that is corrupted. They will look corrupted, that it will feel corrupted. So much so that a person may be believing that he's upon sunnah and istiqamah, and in reality he is upon bid'ah and misguidance. So Shaykh al-Islam has refuted that in the point that we have just mentioned. Likewise, there's a statement of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah in Majmu' al-Fatawa, volume 12. He mentions, وَقِسْمٌ آخر. He mentions that there is another group. أَقْوَامٌ لَا يَعْرِفُونَ اِعْتِقَادَ أَهْلِ السُنَّةِ وَالْجَمَاعَةِ كَمَا يَجِبُ. That there is a group of people who do not know the belief of Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah as it is obligated to be known. Or يَعْرِفُونَ بَعْدَهُ. Or they may know a part of that belief. وَيَجْهَلُونَ بَعْدَهُ. And they are ignorant of a part of the Islamic belief, or the belief of Ahlus Sunnah. وَمَا عَرَفُوهُ مِنْهُ قَدْ يَكْتُمُونَهُ. And that which they know, and the part of the religion and the belief that they know, that they conceal it. They conceal the true Islamic aqidah. وَلَا يُبَيِّنُونَهُ لِلنَّاسِ. And they will not make that clear. And they do not make that clear to the people, meaning the true Islamic aqidah, that which they know to be true, that they hide it and they don't make it clear to the people. وَلَا يَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْبِدْعَةِ. And they do not forbid innovations. وَلَا يَذَّمُّونَ أَهْلِ الْبِدْعَةِ. And they do not forbid, or they do not censure and tell off and criticize the people of bid'ah, the people of innovations and misguidance. And they do not punish them. وَيُعَاقِبُونَهُمْ. That they do not punish them and repel them. بَلْ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَذَّمُّونَ الْكَلَامِ فِي السُّنَّةِ وَأُصُولِ الدِّينِ مُطْلَقًا. Rather, what you might find from them perhaps is that what they do instead is that they rebut, or that they censure the speech that emanates from the sunnah and the religion of Islam itself, or the religion or the religion itself mutlaqa. That this is what you find them doing. So even though they know the truth, that they refuse to censure bid'ah or the people of bid'ah. This is Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. This is no one from the 21st century or the 15th century in the Islamic calendar. This is Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, the Imam and the Mujaddid, the Shaykh, the Allama Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, the Bahr of ilm, the ocean of knowledge of his time. So he mentions that these individuals, they instead of clarifying the truth, that they hide the truth and they hide the aqidah. And then he mentions with regard to them, وَقَدْ يُفَرِّقُونَ بَيْنَ مَا يَقُولُهُ أَهْلُ السُّنَّةِ وَالْجَمَاعَةِ وَمَا يَقُولُهُ أَهْلُ الْبِدْعَةِ وَالْفُرْقَةِ. In fact, he mentions that they do not distinguish between that which is said by the people of Ahlul Sunnah, by the people of Sunnah and the Jama'ah, and that which is said by the people of Bid'ah and separation and division, by the people of deviation, yani. That they don't distinguish between the two. Rather, he mentions, all what they will do, أو يقرون الجميع على مذاهبهم المختلفة. Or what they will do is that they will accept all of the speech, whether it be from Ahlul Sunnah and from Ahlul Bid'ah, from the various madhahib, that they will accept all of it, or they will affirm all of it, and they will justify all of it. كما يقر العلماء في المواضع الاجتهاد التي يسوغ فيها النزاع. He mentions, just as the ulama of Ahlul Sunnah, that what they do with regard to the affairs of ijtihad, that they know that there are certain affairs of ijtihad, the Ahlul Sunnah, that they do not condemn others from Ahlul Sunnah, meaning that they don't declare them to be innovators. And they don't declare them to be outside of Ahlul Sunnah. Because of those affairs of ijtihad in the Masail Fiqhiyya and other affairs from the Ahkam of the Deen. Like for example, a simple example of that is that which is the difference between Shaykh al-Albani and Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, or Shaykh al-Albani and Shaykh bin Baz in the issue of where to place the hands after the ruku'. The Shaykh al-Albani stated that the placing of the hands is by the sides, and he brings his evidence. And Shaykh ibn Baz stated that the hands are to be placed upon the chest after the ruku', and then he tries to bring his evidence. But in that difference that they have between each other, this is the amr ijtihadi. It is an affair of ijtihad. Both of them strive to reach the truth, but they differ with each other with regard to the conclusion. But they do not condemn each other and declare each other to be mubtadi'ah. They don't say that you are an innovator because you don't agree with me, or that you are a person from the Khawarij because you don't agree with me. This is an affair in which Ahlul Sunnah have differed, and they may have inkar, and they may make inkar of each other. They may even refute each other over this issue. But they will not declare each other to be outside of Salafiyya, outside of the ranks of Ahlul Sunnah. So he mentions that these people, that they take the usul of the people of bid'ah, and they take the statements of the people of bid'ah in all of their various madahib, with regard to their various ideas and their ideologies and schools of thought, with regard to the people of bid'ah. And they regard that to be a difference, just like the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah may differ in an issue of ijtihad. Is that clear? See how these people work. And then he mentions, just like Ahlul Sunnah, that they differ in some of the affairs of differing that they have between each other. He mentions, وَهَذِهِ حَالُ كَثِيرٍ مِنَ الْمُرْجِعَةِ. And he mentions that this is the condition of many of the murji'ah, this deviated sect. وَبَعْدِ الْمُتَفَقِّهَةِ. And many of those people who ascribe themselves to be thinkers. وَالْمُتَسَوِّفَةِ. And the people who ascribe themselves to Sufism. وَالْمُتَفَلْسِفَةِ. And those people who ascribe themselves and they call themselves philosophers. That this is their condition. The murji'ah, the mutafaqqiha, the mutasawwifa, and the mutafalsifa. That this is their condition. That when the bid'ah appears, that they hide it and they refuse to speak against it. And they say that those who speak against it, that they are wrong, that you should allow them to continue upon their bid'ah. So Shaykhul Islam Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned that this thinking and this thought is not from the thought of Ahlul Sunnah, but rather the thought of these groups, these four groups that he has mentioned, the philosophers and the thinkers and the murji'ah and the Sufis. This is their ideology. Let everyone tread upon his path and let him practice his Islam as he wishes and as he chooses. But the path of Ahlul Sunnah is what? The path of Ahlul Sunnah is when deviation occurs and corruption occurs, then it is an obligation upon the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah to clarify the truth. And this is something, my brothers and my sisters, is something that has been occurring with the ulama of Ahlul Sunnah generation after generation for nearly 15 centuries. For nearly 15 centuries the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah have been upon that way. The great scholar Shaykh Abdul Aziz ibn Baz in his Majmu' al-Fatawa volume 3, Shaykh Abdul Aziz bin Baz rahimahullah, Shaykhul Islam, the Imam and the Mujaddid of this era, he mentions that there is no doubt that it is obligatory upon the Muslims to unite their ranks. This is an obligation. The Muslims should be united, to gather their speech together upon the truth, and to cooperate with each other upon bir and taqwa, to cooperate with each other upon righteousness and piety against the enemies of Islam. Just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded them the most perfect with his saying, when Allah said, وَاعْتَسِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated, and hold on all of you together to the rope of Allah, and be not disunited. And then he warned them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned them against division. When Allah Jalla wa Ala stated, وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ تَفَرَّقُوا وَاخْتَلَفُوا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتِ, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, and do not be like those who differed, who divided and separated, and they differed with each other, مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتِ, after the clear evidences had come to them. So Allah forbids splitting and differing. And the obligation of the uniting of the Muslims and uniting their word upon the truth does not necessitate, Shaykh Abdul Aziz bin Baz mentions, does not necessitate that one does not forbid the evil from the one who acts with evil or has an evil and misguided aqeedah. It does not mean that just because Allah has commanded us to be united, that just because Allah Jalla wa Ala has commanded us not to divide and not to differ, that this does not mean that the person who has the corrupted aqeedah, who has a belief that opposes the belief of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, that an individual remains silent upon that way. He mentions, like for example from the Sufiya, from the people of Sufism or other than them, rather it is a requisite of the command and obligation from the command to hold on to the rope of Allah, that one enjoins the good and that he forbids the evil. To clarify the truth to the one who has strayed away from it, or to the one who thinks that the opposite of the truth is correct. So this is an obligation, and this is done with the Sharia evidences and the proofs, until they are united together and they are gathered together upon the truth, and they renounce that which opposes it. And this is what is necessitated by the saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when Allah mentioned in an ayah, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَعُدْوَانِ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, and cooperate with each other upon bir and taqwa, upon righteousness and piety, and do not cooperate with each other upon sin and transgression. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that. And likewise the saying of Allah Jalla wa Ala, وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, and let there arise out of you a group that calls to all that is good and excellent, and they enjoin that which is good, and they forbid that which is evil. Indeed, they are the ones who are muflihun, they are the ones who are successful. And this is a category, or a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that there must be a group of individuals from the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam that enjoin the good and they forbid the evil. And they continue to do that, my brothers and sisters, if they wish to be successful, muflihun. And likewise we find, as the Shaykh he continues, and when the people of truth remain silent concerning and regarding the clarification of the mistakes of the erroneous and the blunders of those who make mistakes, then they do not attain or reach that which Allah has commanded with or called to by way of khair, by way of goodness, and enjoining righteousness and forbidding evil. And it is known that that which is built on top of that from the sin of the one who remains silent about forbidding evil, and the one in error who continues upon his error, and the mukhalif of the truth remains upon his error. And this is in opposition to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated from giving of nasiha.